Hey guys, welcome to an episode of Trauma Uncensored. What doozy. Giant disclaimer for this one. We're going to go into the story of what put Brooke on the road the day that Logan died. It is very sensitive, so if you are maybe not prone to stories with a little bit of, not a little bit, with a severe dark moments, maybe fast forward through the disclaimers. You probably could skip ahead like a minute after each of the disclaimers and kind of get through some of these. But this is a sensitive episode. Do not listen to this one with your kids in the car. This is definitely not for young ears. This is some grown-up shit that we talk about today. We talk a little bit about habits. We go into the story before it all happened and why it all happened. Pretty sensitive stuff. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Thanks for listening. This is Trauma Uncensored.
Trauma Uncensored.
Trauma Uncensored.
Trauma Uncensored.
We are back. It is good to see you again.
Hi.
We skipped a week.
We did. Yes, unfortunately we had to. I had a molar removed during our regular scheduled recording time last week. So
Yay.
If anybody ever wants to argue about how the body does or does not keep the score, I will talk until I'm blue in the face about how it absolutely does.
That's right.
It does.
It does.
It does.
Comes up later in life. And
Well,
hits you in the most random
that's the
places.
thing. I never had dental issues until after Logan died. Started a couple years after Logan died, and I've now had both of my back molars removed, and then I've had to have the other molar on the other side. Though I think that's molar 2 or 3 or whatever removed, and I've got an implant there. But like I said, all growing up, I've always been told I had great teeth. I've always taken care of my teeth. But the stress and trauma of the situation, I now know, it causes me to clench, right? So, I mean, I am a constant clencher. In fact, I've been under stress this past week, and I'm waking up at 3 in the morning, clenching my teeth, and then I can't go back to bed. So, yay me. Hopefully that'll even out. I'm getting up and crocheting and watering plants and all before the world is awake.
You just have to clench the top of your head so that way it evens out.
Well, I don't even know what that means. What does that even mean? Clench the top of your head. I'm going to sit here and try to clench the top of my head. For everybody watching, you are welcome for the entertainment today.
You can't. That way you let go of the jaw, and just the top of your head you're clenched.
Listen, the top of my head has been clenching for a very long time too. Hence the reason I've been to residential trauma twice. I've been to an OCD program. I'm in ketamine therapy and all the things. That's right. And I'm here today because my head never stops clenching.
This is true. I do like your shirt though, bright yellow.
Hey, yeah, and it matches your hat.
We're matching. We didn't even plan this, by the way.
No, we didn't.
Not coordinated, and I feel like we needed this. Yeah,
we did. Today feels like a much needed bright day while we talk about what we're going to talk about. But yeah, this Trauma Uncensored t-shirt, we've got 2 designs. You can find it at traumauncensored.com. That's right. I'm going to just go ahead and plug that. And
do it.
Yeah, all the proceeds that start coming in are going to go toward different missions that we have created to help other people, help create community. A lot of good stuff is coming in. In fact, I was at a restaurant on Friday with a friend, and we were sitting through, and she really needed a friend to talk to. And the waitress who was at our table, Jordan and I haven't seen her since April 23rd of 2024. Jordan and I, that's our anniversary, April 23rd.
How do you remember that specifically? Got it.
Well, but yeah, because it was our anniversary. And Jordan and I were just like, where are we going to go for dinner? And he was wanting to do like this, just grand, let's go do something really nice. And I'm like, why? Let's just go hang out, let's go get tacos and beer. So we went to Condado's in Franklin, and the waitress, was working, and she has all these really cool tattoos all over her arms and her fingers and everything. And I'd been looking for a tattoo artist. And I asked her where she had gotten them, and she said, "You've got to check out this girl. Her name's Nicole Detterer. She actually just got married. Forgive me, Nicole, I don't remember the last name yet, but I promise I will get there. But you can still find her on Instagram at Nicole Detterer. But I was given that information, and that's when all the tattooing started. I went and saw Nicole, and over a year later, I've got a full sleeve, and I've got my left arm in progress, and I've got a big Pearl Jam tattoo on my right calf, and the Deathly Hollows is behind my ear, which I often forget. But when I see people staring, I'm like, oh yeah, right. Anyway, short story long, as Brooke tends to do. So I was there Friday, and she was waiting on us again. And I stopped her and I was like, you probably don't remember me, but I have to thank you. And I started describing about how, she was the one who waited on us, and she had the tattoos, and I was asking for references. And she goes, "You had the script of your son's handwriting on your wrist." And I was like, that's
Boom.
right. So she remembered me. She remembered us.
That's sick.
I know. And I told her, I was like, thank you for sending me to Nicole. And then I showed her, all the stuff. I mean, outside of my back. So I was in New York City. When we were in New York City in June, people were asking me about my tattoos. And I've got this large, like, mandala, divine timing eye on the back. Literally took off half of my shirt to show them. And this guy's looking at me, and I'm like, listen, I don't care. Where's the modesty? Listen, what I've been through in life, there's no modesty. So I stopped short of showing her my back tattoo, but anyway. So I shared with her, because she was asking about some of the different images, and I shared with her about this podcast. And, gave her one of the stickers. So we do have stickers with QR codes if anybody is interested, but we also have just regular stickers. Look at me plugging again. But
there it is.
She took one, and I heard from her last night, and it was so incredible for me to read it, because, and I'll tell you why here in just a second, but she laid out so much information. Like, she detailed so much of her past. And I mean, that's the second time I've met this woman, right? And she just
let it out.
She did. And it got me, it gets me thinking. And the more I talk to people and the more people provide feedback, I truly believe the majority of humans want to talk about their trauma. They just, A, aren't given the space. B, maybe they don't even know that it exists to a point that they need to talk about it. Or C, they don't feel like they have anybody to talk to. So it's been very powerful. And my goal, I'll continue to mention it. And of course it's going to continue to evolve. But the goal is going to be to create this community space, right? And create, resources for people. And, we're still working on that fun thing for next fall.
That's right. We are.
Yeah. That I'm really hoping will be a great resource for people to start opening up into new avenues of healing. And, so in order to do all of this, that's why me plugging merch, and, we're talking about sponsors and plugging people like that's Athletic, right. Athletic,
yeah.
Since I quit drinking because it's healthier, right? It's healthier. Don't distract from the trauma.
It's hard to drink and drive if you don't drink as well.
That's right. I don't think I've told you about this since, because I didn't see you last week, but I passed my motorcycle course. Good for you. What up? All right.
But as I was doing my course, I was really, there's so much concentration that's required to ride a motorcycle. And I had never really ridden one before, at least not to that capacity. And so I texted Bree, like, after the first day of the course. It was a 2-day course, but I texted her like halfway through the first day, and I was like, I think I'm going to give up drinking. And she goes, oh, okay. And by the way, it's not like I drink a lot or anything, but it's just, I've never really got the hype. I do understand that, man, sometimes a good beer with a nice steak,
I know,
that can be good. Or like after like mowing the lawn. Oh, I get it. I get that. And I'll probably miss that. At least I'm going to try it out for a year and see how I feel. But but that's not worth it. Like in my head, I'm
Right.
like, I would hate to just, I would hate it. It's so much fun to ride a motorcycle. I would be so terrified if I felt even a little buzzed and had to ride home, which, so I wouldn't. And then that would be so not fun. So like the joy of like the beer or the drink versus not being able to ride whenever I want. I don't think that's worth it.
I know. Well,
because
and
it's so fun to ride, you know?
at today,
like, I don't wanna
it's
do this
interesting
anymore.
because it's kind of like when gluten-free first came onto the scene and everything sucked, right? All the gluten-free shit sucked. And now the gluten-free, I mean, there's a lot of good gluten-free stuff out there. I'm not specifically gluten-free, but I used to be. And I have found that there are quite a few non-alcoholic beers out there
Yeah.
that taste the same. Corona is one of them. So when I was with my friend Friday, I had some Corona, which was really great. The athletic brand. I mean, I could name all sorts of brands, but if restaurants and, even airlines were to hop on to that
Yeah.
horse, it would,
That'd be
then
good.
you could go out and have a steak. And like the Athletic Hazy IPA, I keep talking about Athletic. We're looking to
We're hoping to be
hopefully
affiliates.
affiliates with them. But so I'm just getting the party started. But the Athletic IPA Hazy is one of my favorites, and I would love that with a beer. But I drink it, and I'm like, I don't know any difference. Last night I was talk about a completely oxymoronic. I was sitting in the living room drinking one of those and crocheting. Old
Nice.
versus young. It's like I can't get rid of the young, but I'm embracing the old. So
You're balancing the two.
you're doing my best.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. And honestly too, just health wise, last year I gave up beer. So I was still having like cocktails, but I gave up beer entirely, and I lost weight. I mean, the lack of there's like so many other things besides just right. But I think after meeting you and all this and understanding some stats about distracted driving and drunk driving and the overlap and stuff, in my head I'm like, you know what? It's already, there's people already out there driving that are drunk. So
Right.
which is sad, but if I'm not, then that helps that much more,
Right. Well, and
and it's not like I drove drunk before, but even like people still like, you still have a beer and then you go
Right,
home
and then drive,
So
right.
any alcohol in general, it definitely affects you. I mean, yeah, after an hour, you've kind of, process it and it's out of your system. Sure. I'm not there. That's why there's a legal limit to drive. But I just, in my head, I'm like, you wouldn't even ever have to worry about it at all if you don't drink. Like there's no question. You could always drive home.
Right.
If you just don't drink, period.
Yep.
And so in my head, I'm like, I think I'm gonna. It's not. It especially when riding a motorcycle. It's just so important to be so concentrated. So even just a little bit of like distraction, it could be the difference between life and death. And so
Absolutely.
And I know it might be extreme, but that's just how I react to things when I understand the statistics of things. Right, like motorcycle crashes happen more than car crashes. There's even the ones that are the same are still like way more fatal, and so like why would I fuck with that? You know what I'm saying? Is essentially my brain.
Well, and
overcompensating for it, but that's okay. It'll save my
all
life.
of that. Well, and that's the thing is, my biggest question and the biggest thing that I'm learning, and not that I didn't know this before. A few weeks ago when I was like, you know what, if I can get by with the non-alcoholic, I mean, I may have like a beer or two here and there if I'm going out with a friend or if I, but it's very few and far between. Did you lose me? Hello, everybody. I'm in the world of don't know
We lost the camera, but
what
that's okay.
happened to my camera.
Hold on, let me pause the recording here.
All right.
Okay,
So-
we're back. That was
Yep,
funny.
Sorry, guys.
We lost Brooke's camera.
The one time I forget to put my camera on or my phone on do not disturb. So anyway, what I've noticed in the past few weeks, and like I was saying before, it's not that I didn't know this before, and I've never been an alcoholic, but I've always been someone, and I learned this as I was going through residential trauma. It made more sense, who has tried to run or distract from the pain, to hide the pain, to mask the pain. I started smoking at 13. I used to do in high school, I was anorexic, and then I would also binge eat, right? So this is me in control, right? Of my, trying to control something where I can't control my emotions and all of that. And I can remember times throughout my adult life where I've chosen to drink, you know, because I was going through a stressful situation, which I'd never really thought about before. But when our marriage would get rocky, I would start drinking again. Or if I was overwhelmed at work, I would start drinking again. And then, like I mentioned before, it was the appellate, hearing and, the documents with Logan's autopsy where I started drinking again last November and started smoking. And now that, I've had more clarity without it in the past, I think it's been three or 4 weeks now. There have been many times, like I have not actively bought a pack of cigarettes because if I don't have them, I'm not going to smoke them.
Yeah.
There is beer out in our beer fridge, but I actively choose a non-alcoholic. And there have been many times that I have just had to sit and breathe. And I have said out loud, boy, I wish I could have a cigarette, or it's fascinating that I had this day and I did not resort to having a beer. And being able to say that out loud is like, ding, ding, ding. That's where I was associating, or that's how I was managing and coping through all of that. And then, of course, for people who, stop their habits or their soothers and start to really feel things, then they're like, I don't want to be here. And that's when people can relapse or do other things. So it forces you to actually sit there and feel your feelings. And that's just...
It's all about habits.
It is, but it's also about learned habits, right? Who did we watch?
Well, so there was a book called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. It came out in the 50s, and every person that's been in sales, like in a rigorous sales training, like really might have heard of it, but we did it when I went door to door. They shared this, and in it, the first thing that it talks about of how to like improve your life, but really your sales, but in general your life, is by understanding that every human being is a slave to habits. Some habits are good, some habits are bad. There's no exception. Everybody, we're like creatures of habit. We were designed like there's routine and then there's habit, and so. One is recognizing which habits you don't want. And maybe that's not necessarily a bad habit, but it's just like, oh, I just don't want to do that anymore. Or I want to start doing this. So the way that you do it is that you, first of all, acknowledge it, but then you start saying, okay, I have to commit to, setting a new one. And so then you start a routine that helps you set you up for success to follow this new habit that you want. And after a while, I'm quoting here, and it says, when you start doing something, you're terrible at it essentially, but then you start becoming good at it. And when you're good at something, it becomes a pleasure to perform. And if it's a pleasure to perform, you do it often. And if you do it often, it becomes a habit. So then the trick is finding joy in, for example, if you want to go from alcoholic beer to non-alcoholic beer, finding joy in that beer, whether it's because you appreciate the taste, or you do it during a time where you're always celebrating, or you drink it during a time where you're having a good meal with your family, or you position it in a place where it's a place where you already find joy. And so it's easier to adopt that habit and shed the last one that you didn't want. Yeah. It's all about setting up that new behavior in a way that's in a happy way, not in a bad way. And so then if you drink when you're upset, or if you drink when you're to cope or to deal with stress, and it makes you feel good, then that's why it starts becoming a problem, because all of a sudden it does make you feel good from a bad situation, right? That's bad, because then it becomes a habit and then it becomes an addiction. Whereas if you do it on I never drink, and here in Oregon there's marijuana as well, so if I or doing THC specifically, I never do it if I'm feeling stressed or if I'm feeling bad, like emotionally, because I'm like, it's gonna make me feel better. And then I'm going to get dependent on it every time. So I only do it when I'm in a good place. Yeah. Like when I'm celebrating something, because then that's that way, but anyway, I don't mean to preach here. I'm saying that's kind of what I've learned. No, it's good, because I'll bet you many people are the same and either don't recognize their behaviors could be to distract or to, push something down, or they just don't realize. I mean, they don't realize and they don't want to, or they don't want to admit.
I mean, and that's, I mean, like I said,
whole different problem.
I knew better, right? Whenever I started again back in November, I knew better. I knew it wasn't good for me. I knew what I was doing. And that's what I chose to do, So that's the onus is on me for that one, but the onus is also on me to flip that habit as well.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a good cold open.
Yeah,
20 minutes.
hey!
If you are new to the show, by the way, thanks for being here at this point. I'm not even reminding people of the first episode, although after this one, go check that out. It'll give you a lot more context about what we're talking about. But we're here to help people heal because all of us have been through some sort of trauma. We don't judge. We're just here to help people understand how Brooke was able to survive, literally survive, one of the most horrendous things that a human being can experience, which is losing a child. And so thanks for being here. We hope that you find solace here. We hope that you find a community here. We hope you find space here that's good for you. Disclaimers, we are not psychologists, so everything we're talking about here, it's not like I'm a certified therapist. Neither is Brooke. She was a professor
of graphic design.
And I do stand-up comedy. So no to getting advice here. It's more to share and have a place for people to understand that it's okay. It's okay. Now, there are some great podcasts out there about trauma who are ran by therapists. In fact, we're actually trying to work with them, see if we can get Brooke on those shows. Highly recommend go checking those out as well. If you're someone who needs help, if you're in a dark place, please reach out to us. We will try our best to help. You can reach us at hello@traumauncensored.com. There will be a link on the show descriptions to check that out. And of course, you can sign up for our newsletter to know when new episodes drops. Anytime that we're going to push any sort of product in the future or any sort of event that's happening or anything like that is only going to be on the podcast. Our newsletter is exclusively just so you know where there is a new episode and how to find it, what places you can go download it at. That's pretty much it. It's just so you can be notified. You can also opt in to hear about other things, which we might include in the future for a separate newsletter or group of people who do that. But just so you know, please go sign up there. We are on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And last but not least, leave us a review wherever you're listening. It does mean a lot to us, and it does help a ton to hear some feedback because it's helped steer the conversation and it's helped us understand more what the real mission of this podcast is. And so it does mean a lot to us to leave a review, even if it's like not a great review. Let us know because we appreciate that to make the show better and to make it easier for people to be a part of this whole community that we're building. That being said, we're going to read out a 5-star review. This latest one comes from Rebecca Pettit. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. I'm so sorry. Rebecca says, a must listen. Most episodes I've listened to twice. Look at that. Wow. Twice. My mother and I took a road trip the other day and we binged the entire season. Knowing that the crash intimately, I knew I was going to be enthralled. However, I didn't realize how introspective and healing it would be, and for me with my own personal traumas. Brooke has a way with words and I could listen to her all day. Thanks so much, Rebecca. That's awesome.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you for leaving that. By the way, the written reviews can only be left on Apple Podcasts. So if that's where you're listening, please go and do so. That'd be great. Let's jump into some of the things we wanted to talk about today, Brooke. What do you say?
That's my answer. As my allergies, my Tennessee allergies get to me. That was perfect timing, right?
Here we go.
Well,
this one's gonna hurt.
It is. I'm bracing myself for this one, but it's something that is a long time coming. It's information that I've shared here and there with people. But in order to get the true impact of the magnitude of the day that Logan died and everything that follows after, there's a very important story to share about events that began to take place about 9 months before he passed away. Yeah. So this is something that I have to continue to work on. And it is such powerful trauma. So people look at us and think that our trauma exists because Logan died in the day of the crash and everything that followed after. But what most people don't realize is that this started not quite a year before. And for future episodes, for what it's worth, my trauma, Jordan's trauma, actually has been lifelong, just in different stages and different ways that has kind of helped us. Oh, I wouldn't say kind of, has helped us build the safety mechanisms, right? And those safety mechanisms are how we perform in such situations, or in many situations, all situations. But the perfect storm of events that began to percolate, then circulate, then explode right before Logan's death really is, I mean, a story that, there are often times without that story, I don't know that we would have been on the road that day. So,
Yeah.
I do believe that all of this has a purpose. And I can also sit and go, fuck, if I just would have known then what I know now, if I would have had the tools then maybe, just maybe, things would be different. But I can't sit in that. I can't sit in that space because I don't have control over it. That's not how it happened. So what can I do now with my experiences and the information that I have and the tools that I have to help other people who have been through serious trauma, who are going through serious trauma, who are going to go through serious trauma, because as we create awareness, as we put this on the map, people may go through situations like I had been in and know, okay, this sucks. This is what happened. And I know I can go this route, this tool, that tool, resource, and not sit and feel alone, and not sit and your nervous system just continually build and build and build until you're not just full-blown sympathetic, so your nervous system is all over the place. For people like me, my entire body just shut down. My mind, my body shut down, almost like I was in this, I basically was in this big dissociative black hole where, I just kind of would sit and stare. I remember a few days before Logan died, Jordan and I had taken him to piano lessons, and I was just so gone that I just sat there and I stared off. We were sitting outside and I just stared off, and Jordan kept, checking in on me, and I had nothing to say. I don't know. I was not even really existing within my shell. I was just, my whole body was in protection mode, which I didn't know that at the time, but it was protecting me from all of these different things. One thing in particular, that had happened starting about October of 2015.
Yeah. Okay, so hold on. Before we jump into this,
Yep.
okay, because I've heard this story. I think I'm about to hear in the most detail I've heard it.
Yeah,
ever.
you've not heard all the details.
I've heard the 20,000 or the 30,000 foot view of this, which I think we're going to hear today, and then kind of dig into this even more later as episodes go on. But we'll share as much detail as we can here today as well. But this is another episode. So the first episode we had about the crash, there was a moment where we stopped and we're like, hey, there's a bit of a sensory, could be triggering content. This is the first time since the first episode where this might also be in a different way, but still kind of sensitive. So if you're listening to this in the car with your kids in the car,
Yes, please stop.
maybe don't do that.
Go back to it later.
This is just a disclaimer here, just because it's definitely a sensitive and a very it's dark. It's dark, but again, this is uncensored, right? Trauma uncensored. So this is some of the stuff that we committed to talking about that were part of this story, in an effort to show that the transparency and vulnerability actually is the strong and courageous thing to do. And so let me just say, I'm proud that you're going to share this story, and I know this takes
Thanks.
a lot of ovaries to share. So
I don't need more than I've already got. Can I
know,
tell
I'm just
you
saying,
that? Okay.
I'm just saying, because
Just let you know.
guys say it takes a lot of balls, but it's like, there's a whole half of the population that doesn't. This takes ovaries. You know what I'm saying?
Got it. Yeah, don't give me more, please.
That's So that's the disclaimer to this story, because it does get a little dark. So with
And
that
I
said,
am not going to name actual names.
Right.
This is going to be one of those situations where I'm not. People who are listening will know what I'm talking about if they were involved in the situation or I've talked to before. But for sake of privacy, I will not name names. I'm also going to try to be as gently honest as possible
You do a
Although
good job. You do a good job at that. You do a good job at that.
I know. I was thinking, actually, while I was awake at 3 o'clock this morning, I was thinking about how I was actually going to describe the words that I typically use. And I don't, I don't know. I don't know, because this is a very sensitive topic. So
Yeah.
we're just going to go with it. We're going to go and
Let's
see.
just
But,
jump in and see what
yep.
happens.
At the end of the day, though, I'm sharing this because I do believe, we hear about people who just all of a sudden shut down, right? We hear about people who end up committed. We hear about people who take their lives all of a sudden. We had no idea it was coming. Well, let's look at their life and see what was going on at the time or what had gone on previously, and did things continue to build on that? And what was the likelihood that their brains and bodies just couldn't take the stress anymore? And I mean, our bodies will literally shut down. And I don't think that's what a lot of people understand, is that, like, remember I had said before, I was a tenured graphic design professor, right? I was doing great things for my program. I was taking students to Europe to meet, people and see things, and taking them to New York City every year to meet, famous American designers and do all this stuff. And, I'm a mom of two, and I'm a go-getter, and I'm a published author, and doing all these presentations, for at conferences and stuff. And so when I look back at it, I'm like, well, shit, I went to grad school with a baby. I started grad school with a baby. He was 2 months old. And
Total
because
badass.
the program was so intense, it was an automatic 3 years. So I have my MFA in the time frame where people get a PhD, right? And all along the way, I had Logan, and so it has taken me a long time to give myself grace and accept the fact that what happened to me was not my fault. What happened to me was not a weakness. It was just a very unfortunate chain of events. And because I had grown up being taught the tools, the safety mechanisms, the unhealthy ones that I had, I didn't have the ability to respond to these events in the ways that I would have if it happened to me today. And that's where I'm like, that's why I do say, had I known then what I know now, he may very well still be alive. But he's not. So this is my chance to share and create awareness for anyone and everyone, that if all of a sudden you find yourself checking yourself into a mental program, an inpatient program like I did, it's not your fault. If something's going on and your family members check yourself in, it's not your fault. If all of a sudden you feel like your world is spinning out of control and you don't know why, it's not your fault. If you are battling with thoughts of suicide, please understand it's not your fault. You are not weak. And there are resources and tools there for you, so you can work around what's going on. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to happen overnight. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. And if you allow yourself to do it, then those moments of crisis can and will turn. But you have to be part of that and do the work around it, and not just the work, but the appropriate work, right?
That's
Let
right.
me help you understand what good tools are out there or good resources, where I had none of that. I was going to therapy, right? I was doing everything I thought could do. I was going to therapy, just talk therapy, and
Which is a good start.
it was. And I was trying
But there's
different
more to it than
medications.
that, yeah.
Although I was being bounced around on so many, I think it made things worse. But I was trying everything in the book, in the book that I knew, to try and fix what was going on with me. But the problem was that A, I had no idea what was wrong with me. And B, I hadn't been properly trained or given resources to do what was needed to work myself out. Now, interestingly, and I've mentioned this before, I believe, but the day Logan died, we were on the interstate. We were on 75, taking me up to a residential trauma center because things had gotten so bad. And Jordan and I didn't know what to do. And like I said, I'd already been in the 3-day inpatient. And I had checked myself involuntarily because we were told, that there would be all this therapy and all of these like residential trauma things, but it's really nothing more than just a holding tank for you not to kill yourself, right? I mean, 3 days, they're just watching you. So that was awful. So when it really reached a head, and I called Jordan one morning and I was like, listen, I've got one of your scarves around my neck. I got to go somewhere. Then he came home and we found 2 different options for residential trauma. And we were headed to one in Ocala the day that Logan died. So talk about the ultimate
guilt.
Kick you in the asshole. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so hold on. Let's pause it for a second because I don't think we've mentioned this on the air yet.
Maybe not.
I don't think so. I knew this before we even recorded the first episode because you told me the full story in like bite-sized chunks. But let's take a moment to holy shit. So
where would you like me to start over?
Well, so because I know the story of the main thing that we're talking about today, so that's also I want to hear about that. But
which is part of the reason of
which is how you ended up there on September 15th.
15th.
Yeah.
Right.
So, so first of all, again, I'm 99% sure we're on the air. We haven't told people, like the majority of the listeners, that the reason that you were in the car in the first place in Florida was because the whole family went to drop you off at residential treatment. That's where you were headed.
Correct.
And so one of the aspects that we have talked about a little bit is guilt. And I think that dealing with the guilt of that and carrying that and moving through that, I think that we should probably do a full episode separate from this because this is probably going to take up the story. But I just want to get a quick understanding of earlier, because when you were talking about it's not your fault, you're right. I mean, life happens to people, good and bad, and it's not your fault, right? But I'm glad that you said something because you also mentioned, but you still have to do the work to get out of it. So just because it's not your fault, it is your problem,
right?
And there's a very different, like important distinction there. It's not your fault, but you recognize it was your problem.
It took me probably until I think I finally started to come around to letting go of that thought. Probably just baby steps last summer once I got through the OCD treatment because, my wonderful people in residential trauma at the end of 2023, things are falling apart in my office. I'm sorry. Things just drop off the windows. I don't know why. So if you hear random noises, that's what it is. But my team, and when I was in residential trauma at the end of 2023, they started to notice things that they hadn't when I was there in 22 because the situations were so different, and they started to recognize that I was ruminating and I was cycling on ideas and I was, showing massive signs of OCD. Oh, kisses, Brie. I know. Cheers.
Thanks, babe. Cheers.
Anyway,
this is a heavy one.
I know. See, now I totally lost track. It's like the dolphin in my.
You're talking about
being outside my classroom.
You're talking at work. There was like things there were signs at work.
Oh, signs at work. No,
No,
you can't. This girl with ADHD cannot handle kisses to Brie without losing
she brought me
her
coffee,
spot.
and she even put a smiley face on top of it.
Give me a break.
It was great.
Oh, how cute! It's whoa.
You were talking about that you were at work and people were like asking you, and there was like moments that it was like rearing its head.
That's not where I was.
Losing it. Okay. Sorry, I also got distracted because Brie came in, so I stopped listening.
I know. Hey guys, hey audience, can you come in and remind me where I was at? Look, I'm pulling a Jordan.
What I remember you saying was because I mentioned that you took ownership for it
Oh, right, the guilt
yes.
thing. I got
Yes,
it. All right.
guilt. Yeah, and
So,
then it took
oh
you
no,
till
we were
it took you till last year to start
Right.
really understanding. Yeah,
So yeah, so when I was in residential trauma, they started to notice the OCD, and they said, "Listen,
that's what I meant.
you
By
have to
signs.
get you have to get your OCD under control and managed before you can ever do the trauma work." Which I'm like, well, fuck, I wish I would have known that like 10 years ago, but
Yeah.
whatever. So once I got that in control and was able to manage that, that's when I do believe the door began to open for me to understand that it wasn't my fault and that I shouldn't feel guilty, of course, alongside doing the work. And today I know it wasn't me. Right. I mean, even sitting in the fucking trial, I was like, it's my goddamn fault we're here. It's my fault that we're here because we were on the road that day. Right. No matter how many people would say, no, you didn't. You weren't driving that car. You didn't, run into the back of you guys. I'm like, I don't give a shit. It's my fault. So I battled with that a lot. And today I will sit here and I will say, it was not my fault. I was doing everything I knew to do at that time to get myself better for my husband and my children. It just so happened that we got totally fucked along the way. And it wasn't my fault that we got fucked. And
Yes.
but I will say, I will say there are still moments all the time that I think about why we were on the road that day. So it does still exist, but it doesn't hold power over me. You know, I can think about it, but then I can release it as well.
Yeah, and this is such an important distinction here because, and again, we can go over this and then go into the story before we run out of time. but
40 minutes
because again, this concept alone could be its own podcast, like not just an episode. It could be its own full-blown podcast, right? And so, and this is important because there's people listening out there who are feeling guilty for something that they should not be feeling guilty for. Now, I'm not anybody to tell you how to feel. So if that's how you feel, man, I hope that perspective can change the way that you look at this, because then you might start realizing it's actually not your fault. For example, the reason why it's so imperative that you try not to go into this slippery slope is because in every little decision becomes a problem, and it's all right, but it's so not in your control. For example, were you guys headed? Were you on the highway to go to residential therapy because you were suicidal? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you had been in the other lane, not a problem. If you had left 10 minutes later, not a problem. If you had, like, you see what I'm saying? There's like this
so many variables
slope that starts
there's
coming into
variables.
it. And then you start going into, well, I got that coffee before we got on the road. And if I hadn't got that coffee, then we would have been further on the road. And then we would, no.
Well, and here's, I mean,
the
to speak of
reality
those
is this.
variables.
The reality is this. A person got on his fucking phone and was texting going 80 miles an hour and crashed into the back of your car.
He was not texting. Remember,
or he was
not
logging
texting.
into Google or whatever the fuck he was doing. He was on his phone.
Everything but texting. Yeah,
and he crashed into the back of your car and killed your son, which is why he's in jail serving 30 years, right? Because it's literally legally and physically and emotionally and mentally, it is his fucking fault. Were you on the highway because you were going resident? Yes, absolutely. Yes, that is why you were on the highway. But again, if you start nitpicking why this is your fault, it's just so easy to get on it. I mean, it's Jordan's fault because he was on the left lane. No, like how ridiculous does that sound, right? It's just as ridiculous to say that this is because of you, when you were doing everything you could to become to go back to being the mother that you could be, to go back to having agency over your life and not have to succumb to intense trauma, of which we're about to share right here.
We'll get into it. We'll get into it, I promise.
And so I'm just saying this for the people listening who might be feeling where it's like, oh, my trauma was my fault, right? My and sorry, babe, if I'm not supposed to share this, but Bree. So we talked about my daughter and the trauma that we went right before we met. My daughter was in the NICU for 5 weeks. It was tough. She had major surgery. If you haven't listened to the episodes, just a quick recap. But there was a point where Bree was saying that it was her fault because of her work, and that she had inhaled toxins from something from work, and that's what caused the deficiency and abnormality in her throat. And I'm like, no, you can't. Maybe I don't know, but
Yeah, I was going to say,
Like,
in the OCD world, and I hate this phrase, but I use it all the time. I hated it even more when I was in the program. But you have to say maybe, maybe not.
Like-
you know, maybe, but maybe not. So we can't place any sort of guarantee on going in one direction versus the other, or one thing happening versus something. I mean, you just can't. And if you try to control that, you're just digging your hole even further and further. So if also, you can just surrender and be like, you know what, this is what happened.
Life fucking happens, man. It happens. It just happens that way. Or even if it, like, let's go the other way. It is your fault. Totally happened because of you. Okay, well then that also means that your daughter was born because of you, Mila, right? Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like all the other stuff that's happened that's good in the world that have come. I mean, it's a terrible moment. Of course, it's a terrible experience, but there's other good things that have come. I mean, this podcast, and this might save someone's life who's listening. Right. You know, like you never know. And again, the point is we don't know. And so, like, to say that all the bad things are your fault, but none of the good, like, it's just such a weird,
I know,
like, cycle. And I'm hoping that someone listening, or if you're in this, or if you've been through this, like, just really stop and just go, oh no, that's right. Fucking, we're all victims of life, right? But we're also benefactors of life, and good things also happen. And so it's your choice what you look at.
A good way to honestly talk to yourself. So you said the word but, right? Bad things happen, but if you're able to change your vernacular from but to and there is so no. But I mean, but it's good because I was going to talk about it anyway, but you led right into it. If you can say, I lost Logan and it's possibly because of me, and I have Mila now, instead of I lost Logan. But see, that negates, using the word but negates, the Logan because I have Mila and vice versa. But if I say I lost Logan and I have Mila, that came after. I mean, that for me brings everything together. So it's not one or the other. It's not just one event and another event. They're both two intertwined events, right? So, all right.
So it's just so. I mean, I'm sorry to totally derail. It just is so important that like if you're listening to this, first please write in and we can talk about this because I've learned that lesson in the past, and it's just so easy to just start getting nitpicky about all the little dominoes that had to fall to just even lead to any moment in your life. And so then it's like, if you start picking out all the ones that were, quote, your fault, man,
I know.
It's just, you'll get lost in the sauce. And no, don't get me wrong. There are times where you do have to take ownership for shit that you do. That's different. Like, that's a whole different conversation. Like Andrew Otis had to take ownership for the shit he did. That is his fault. Sometimes things are your fault, right?
Right.
But in an event like this, it's like, there's no way you would have known. There's no way. It was just more you were at the wrong place at the wrong time. Why you were there is totally insignificant.
And that is why it's so important to live in the present every minute of every day and stop worrying about what could happen in 30 years and 20 years or even tomorrow, because we just don't know. Logan was here 1 minute and the next minute he was gone, right? Yeah. I mean, in a flash, in an instant, in a second. So I don't spend my time focusing on the faults and the what ifs and the should have beens and could have beens, could I have changed it? I focus on what's going on right now and how can I live my best life in this moment, knowing full well that I could go out and go for a drive after this.
And someone could rear end you because they were on their phone.
And could kill me. I mean, so, what am I going to do? Live in that fear? Which is
why I'm getting a motorcycle. Okay, now.
I'm so sorry. Jordan's going to follow now. Oh, boy.
Thanks, Bree. Okay, let's take this the last 15, 20 minutes to kind of discuss what led to you being on the highway in the first place. And tell this story.
So shall we do a 30,000 foot overview?
Yeah, because I mean, even this section of your life is You could do
There's
a
so
full
much.
podcast just on this topic.
Yeah, we
Which is
could.
why when we started this podcast, I was like, oh my God, we're going to have 500 episodes.
I know.
Like, this is
Just in
crazy.
this. I know.
Okay.
And meanwhile, I've got so many people going, I'd love to be a guest. Can I be a guest? And I'm like,
Yeah, we
we're
got
still
guests.
trying to lay the groundwork, but yes,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes, the
just
answer is
email
yes.
us.
Those
Yes.
just, yeah. Okay.
Yep, we're
Anyway,
getting there.
okay.
All right.
Okay.
So,
Let's do this.
all right. Okay. We're going to all breathe together. Just going to regulate my nervous system. And by breathe,
Yeah, everybody
Andreas is
listening,
gonna
take a deep breath in.
Yeah, because
In through the nose. All right, here we
all right.
go.
There you go. There's your first introduction to breathworks. So, as most people know, I was a professor at the University of Tampa. And I began as an assistant professor in 2010 and received tenure and was promoted to associate professor in January of 2016, which was great. I'd worked very, very hard to get there, but it came with a tremendous amount of stress. I felt like I was always being pitted against my department, against my dean. My dean was very critical of a lot of things that I did. And, because of my self-worth issues, that was very hard. And so none of this just magically started in October of 2015. It had been building for a long time. My marriage was very, very rocky. There was a lot of stress there. Finances were stressful. My job was extremely stressful, even though I loved it dearly. And then in 2015, so I start the tenure process, and that in and of itself is difficult, very, very difficult, requires a lot. But we sold our house in April of 2015. We decided we wanted to live closer, and the opportunity arose for us because I was in the tenure process, to rent a home closer to the university. But it also happened to be located 2 doors down to a family that the dad we shall call Richard. Him and I were also colleagues. Our offices were 2 doors down. We were living 2 doors down. And Richard also had a daughter we will call Ruth. His wife we will call Jane. So Richard, Jane, and Ruth. Ruth. See, I'm going to get these names mixed up. So stay with me, guys. Ruth is just a few months younger than Logan. And they first met. Richard and I first got them together at Logan's, I think, 5th or 6th birthday party. And they became instant best friends. I mean, these kids were inseparable. And we'd always go over to their complex and swim, and we'd go trick-or-treating with them, and we'd all go out and do this and that or the other. And I mean, we even had our favorite spot on the beach. We would meet them on Sunday mornings. And so these two, I was very fond of Richard and Jane. Especially Richard. I thought he was a very near and dear friend of mine. Jane and I would talk a lot too. We'd talk outside of all the here and there. And of course, Logan and Ruth were inseparable. So when we got the opportunity to sell our house in April of 2015, the market was just outstanding. It had just gone through the roof. So we knew it was time. We knew it was time to sell because we ultimately wanted to find something bigger. So this home that was 2 doors down from Richard and Jane, which we ended up leasing from what we thought were friends, not at all friends. That could be a whole nother episode too, but this one's not for them. So we ended up renting from them. And, Richard had been like, move next to us. You'll be right next to the crosstown, which is a highway that kind of dumps you from right where we were living into downtown Tampa, right by the university. And he's like, the kids can play all the time. We go to the pool all the time, yada, yada, yada. So we're like, okay, this makes sense. We sold our home. We moved into this, we moved into this rented home 2 doors down from Richard and Jane. And it wasn't long before Richard, whom, by the way, spent a lot of time with me on my tenure packet. It was incredible. He spent so much time helping me put that together. I mean, my heart held a special place for him for a very long time. So we move in next to that family, and it didn't take long before he started to kind of act a little weird around me. We'd meet at the pool as usual, but he was very kind of closed off and almost distant. And that would just keep going and going. All the meanwhile, at the university, things were also kind of coming to a head. The dean had encouraged a colleague of mine and myself to start the process of breaking out of the art department and forming a new visual communication department, which, just pissed off the art department that we were in. And I mean, rightfully so, but we were doing as we had been encouraged. So, all of a sudden I've just got all this shit going on. Plus a student who was a senior and about to graduate tried to throw me under the bus because I turned her in for plagiarizing in 2 classes. So then she tried to get me fired. And so I'm just under all of this stress, right? But October, right before Halloween of 2015 comes around, and I reach out to Jane, and I was like, "Are we gonna trick or treat like we usually do?" And she responds back, and she's like, "I don't think it's a good idea," or something. Oh wait, hold on, let me back up because that came after this talk. She actually reaches out to me mid-October. And she asks if I can come to her porch and talk. So I'm like, all right. So we're sitting there, and she proceeds to tell me that she found Ruth and Logan touching each other, having a conversation about touching each other, right? These kids were 8 at the time. Ruth had just turned 8, I believe, or was about to turn 8. And she told me, she verbatim said, and I have to figure out how to word this without it being just ungodly crude, but she had said that her daughter was performing a sexual act on my son with her hand. Ooh. And, I will not say the exact phrase verbatim because it's just very rough to hear and to say. But you get the idea. And I'm like, oh my God. So, but it was a cordial conversation. It was a friendly conversation, right? These kids are they are who they are. They're kids. They're just exploring. They can continue to play, but they can't be supervised. Okay. I went home. I told Jordan what was going on. We went about our lives. Then I reached out to Jane and asked if we were going trick or treating. That's what happened. And she sends me a message back and says, it's not a good idea. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Then Richard gets involved. Richard has serious issues. I don't know what his trauma is, but I know it is very deep and very dark, just by experiencing what we did. So he reaches out and he starts yelling at me about asking Jane to go, about going trick-or-treating. And he just, for the next few weeks, would just continue to berate me and bully me through emails. I had said, let's all, the 4 of us, sit down and talk as parents and see what's going on. And, Richard was saying, I sent Ruth to a counselor, and we chose not to call Department of Family Services, to where if anybody knows anything, if a child psychologist or therapist gets wind of any sort of sexual activity like that, especially if deemed forced, they're going to call family services anyway, but that never happened. But so, he's like throwing out all these threats. I'm trying to say, can we talk, the 4 of us, and iron things out? He refuses. Richard refuses to do it. Jordan, one afternoon, so my mother-in-law was in town, and because Jordan and I were like a day away from going to Montreal for, I had artwork to present at a show, and Jordan goes over. He sees Richard sitting on the back porch, and again, 2 doors down, and he walks down trying to have a conversation with Richard, where Richard proceeds to tell Jordan that Logan had... I'm going to say the words. So if anybody is sensitive to this,
Huge
come back
disclaimer.
to it. Yeah,
maybe
huge
forward it.
disclaimer.
And take a pause so that they can find their phone. Like if they're working out or
Yeah.
something and they gotta like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Like
Yeah.
we're
We
gonna
could
give
whistle.
a quick, like a
Should we
10
whistle?
second. We'll just do like a 10-second. This is your chance to either fast forward through this. Okay.
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 Ready?
Go for it. Yeah.
Richard proceeded to accuse Logan of raping and molesting his daughter. So Jordan comes back and relays this information. And of course, we're both just floored. We're stunned. Because these two were best friends. And the last moment that we had been left with it, Jane and I had decided everything was fine. And the kids were going to continue to play just unsupervised. So we end up leaving for Montreal while my mother-in-law was staying with the kids. And that entire time, Richard just keeps bombing me with threats over email, threats and bullying and harassment to a point where I had to finally tell him, I am asking you to stop emailing me. Otherwise, I'm going to get someone involved. Well, that just seemed to fuel his fire even more. So we take Logan. When we get back, we called a lawyer. We let him know what was going on. We had taken Logan. We'd started him with a therapist who said, you realize that I have to call Child and Family Services. And we said, okay, because we knew nothing had happened. When we had approached Logan about the female anatomy and the accusations, Logan had no idea, right? Girls have a pee hole, right? That's all he knew. He had no idea the anatomy of a woman. And so we're just going, something is not adding up with this. What is going on with either Richard or in that household? And what is he trying to project onto us or make us scapegoats for? So our therapist, or Logan's therapist, calls Child Protective Services, and they're cleared, right? They visit both of the kids. They clear everything. The lawyer agrees that it's just kids being kids. My therapist agrees it's just kids being kids. Nobody found any issue. Also, Logan could not understand what we were trying to ask him about those specific acts and words because he doesn't understand female anatomy. So you tell me, if he has no idea any of that, if we're trying to explain it to him, how is he doing this if he doesn't know, right? So again,
if he'd been accused of like theft and like he doesn't understand like that stores are stores or whatever, like it's just like the concept doesn't even occur to him as a boy, as a little boy. So then it's like, how could he possibly be doing this if he doesn't even understand what he's being accused of doing? Like
he had just turned 8 years old.
Yeah,
and Logan doesn't have any older siblings.
Was that third grade? Yeah, or second, third grade. Yeah,
no, he was third grade.
Almost. Yeah, they don't even teach you in school about, the birds and the bees or any of that stuff until like 5th, 6th grade. Yeah, so he wouldn't even know.
And he wasn't getting anything from us, so for him to having been accused of this stuff and then him not understanding, just nothing made sense. But that didn't matter to Richard. Richard had said in emails, I want you and Logan on my porch begging us for forgiveness. And I'm like, you can go fuck yourself. You can go motherfucking fuck yourself. Excuse me, mother, if you're listening to this podcast. That's how angry. I still do. I still clearly have some anger issues, but listen, I'm working on it.
Hey,
around this subject.
That is a heavy thing. Jesus.
Well, but what made it worse was that he went out of his way while we still lived there to bully both Logan and myself. I had to watch my son upset because he had no idea why he couldn't play with his best friend anymore. He couldn't even talk to his best friend. He couldn't be outside when his best friend was outside. He didn't understand. Meanwhile, Richard's walking around like if I drive by him while he's getting the mail, he'd stick his middle finger up and he'd scratch his forehead or his nose, or, he would do everything possible to make life uncomfortable for me.
This dick is real
And-
dick.
Oh, yep, sure is. I mean, among other things.
I said it.
Dick and Jane.
Anyway, Dick and Jane. Richard, I mean. Oh, sorry.
Richard, yeah. So that in combination, so I mean, I'm living this and going through tenure and fighting my department and creating enemies there, not because I wanted to, but because I was encouraged by the dean to do what was right for my graphic design program. And also dealing with this student who was trying to get me fired because I called her on ethics. But it was the Richard situation that kind of was like the umbrella issue. And so that's when I actually noticed, I was talking about the body keeping the score at the very beginning. I started to notice health issues in June of 2016. I didn't realize what was going on, but my body was talking to me. And what would happen was the stress would get so bad that by the end of June, I had made an appointment with my doctor. And by the way, I don't encourage just going to a PCP if you can for mental health medication. Find someone who's, specialized for what you need. Excuse me. I'm continuing to clear my throat.
Yeah, you're good. You're doing great.
Hey, thanks. She starts me on a medication, and I don't know if it was a medication or if I had eaten something or what had happened, but this was July 4th weekend, and I got very sick on July 4th. I started to notice a couple days into the medication that my thoughts were kind of starting to be uncontrollable. And then on July 4th, I was bedridden. I was so sick. July 5th, we end up in the ER. They tell me I have gastritis. They send me home. And that would start this rabbit hole of medical things. I'd be in the ER a multitude of times. Nobody could figure anything out. I'd see the GI doctor, time and time again, once or twice a week, trying to figure out why I couldn't eat, because I literally could not eat, not recognizing that it was my stress and anxiety and myself going into, shutdown mode. I thought it was associated with the medication. So I stopped the medication, but the sickness doesn't go away. And I'm waking up every morning sick to my stomach and full of anxiety. And it just continues to build and build and build. And I know that now. I can see now what that was, right? That is my system finally saying enough is enough and continuing to scream at me until it literally has enough. So, I'm in the ER, I'm doing all of this. I still can't eat. And finally, at the beginning of August of 2016, I check myself back into the ER again. There's a psychiatrist on call that says, you sound like you need a break. There's this place up here. You go, you check yourself into it. It's 3 days. You get all of this counseling and this work and all of this stuff. And I mean, she sold it very, very well. And Jordan and I talk about it, and we agree that that's the right thing to do, right? Something's going on with Brooke. We just don't know how to fix it. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have the tools. We have no idea that my body and brain were literally shutting down day to day today. So I end up going up there. I spend 3 days there. It was so bad that within the first 24 hours, Jordan was trying to get me out. Wouldn't do it. The only way I could get out within 3 days was if I tried more medication. I told that doctor, I was like, no, the last time I tried it, it made me sick. Sure enough, it made me sick that evening. I don't know if it was psychosomatic or if it was actually physical. I mean, the brain does so many crazy things. You could be absolutely fine. Your back could be totally fine, not show anything on a scan, but it could be telling you it's in pain, right? I mean, it's amazing. And I do believe now that entire time, my body was creating the sickness as a warning sign, right?
Yeah.
That too much is too much. So
cry for help.
Interestingly, while I was at the 3 day stay, my nausea went away. which, I mean, to me, that's interesting because I did get a break from life. I got a break from being, at home and doing all of this and worrying about all of this. So I think that allowed it to ease up, but my mind never stopped. It continued once I got home to go deeper and deeper into this abyss to a point where, the first, we took Logan and Mallory to, I don't know how I made it through, but we took them to Disney, I think on September 4th or September 6th of 2016.
Wow. Right before.
I was miserable. And by the next weekend, the week, so let's see, 15th, 14th, 13th, 12th, 11th, I think the 11th, September 11th is when I called Jordan at work, whatever that Monday was. Thursday was the 15th, so I think it was the 11th. I don't remember. September 11th or September 12th. And he came home and we kind of assessed everything and tried to figure out what to do. And I called the 911 or the suicidal hotline, and they, were talking to me about, programs that I should look into. And we found one in Jacksonville and we found one in Ocala, and we chose the one in Ocala. And, it was a hard couple days. Jordan wanted, me to go straight on Wednesday, but I had to find people to cover my classes and show him all the bills and the paperwork and everything that needed to be done. So I chose to go on Thursday. And in fact, I asked Jordan to come home an hour earlier from work than he was supposed to. And about the time he was supposed to be leaving on the 16th, on the 15th is when Logan died. So you want to talk about variables, all the things.
Everything adds up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. It sure does. So, I mean, there are a lot of things out there that I could be like, God, it had just this happen. And I also recognize that, like Andriotis, Richard created this unsustainable way of living for our family while we still lived 2 doors down. And we were trying to get out. I mean, we were trying to buy another house, get out of the house. Yeah. I mean, we were trying to do all the things to get ourselves away from that situation. But at the time, our, deposit for the rental was so high that we're like, well, we can use that toward, money for the house or for a new house. And so we decided to stay, and I've kicked my ass in the pants for staying instead of going. And I mean, again, variables. But it's always interesting to me to, not a lot, but I do, sit and align the situation between Richard and Andriotis. 2 people causing horrific trauma to a family.
Yeah.
And yet I end up thinking it's my fault for a long time. The thing is that at that moment in 2016, it was unsustainable for me in the fact that I wanted out of my life. And that's what put us on the road that day. Andriotis would take my life from me, and that would put me into survival mode until the survival mode wore off. Then I wanted to end the pain again. There's so many direct parallels between the situations. They're not alike by any means, but both took Logan from me. I witnessed my then 9-year-old son, who was 8 at the time, turned 9. The whole time, I mean, it upset him. He was so upset. He was so distraught. There were situations that happened in the neighborhood that, he would just be crying so hard because of what Richard would do. And it was very hard to watch my son go through this. It was so very hard. And, you'll hear therapists talk about, or trauma therapists talk about little T's, which are little traumas. And as they happen over and over and over, they stack up and build up and create a big T, a big trauma. And Richard's little T's again, on top of everything else that was going on, but I do believe Richard was the tipping point. all of those little T's grew and grew and grew and grew until my body and my brain just said, we're fucking done. We have no more to give and support. And I just had no idea, right? I had no idea.
Oh,
I know. It's pretty
so
heavy
sorry.
shit.
I'm sorry.
Thank you
happened
all
to
for sticking with me through that. It's a time in my life that I wish I could rewrite. And I can't. The only thing I can do with it is, God, I've been waiting to tell that story out loud for a decade now. Logan died 9 years ago, but 10 years ago right now, we were starting to transition into that situation with Richard very slowly. And if I could go back, I never would have moved, or I would have gotten him out of that, Logan out of that situation. But I didn't. And there's nothing I can do about it now, except for talk about it and share it with the world. And maybe someday he'll hear this and he'll recognize that none of this was okay. He wrote a note and left it in our door after Logan died. Jordan never let me read it. He tore it up before I ever got home. But Richard still put in the note, some condolences, I think, but then still put something to the effect of, it can never be denied what happened between our children.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
Man.
apparently, so this is the story coming from Jordan. He would have to tell it because I wasn't there. I was still in the hospital. And this was right after Jordan and my brother and dad and mother-in-law had just gotten back from the morgue to see Logan when Jordan found that note or card or whatever it was. And he had my brother go next door with them and told my brother, it pull me back if I start to make a move. And stood there with the letter in his hand and basically told Richard, fuck you, you don't get to do this. And if Brooke ever saw this would break her. And, so I didn't know about it for a while later. But that's what we were dealing with. We were dealing with someone very mentally unhealthy. And like I said, I am so very curious about what trauma lies underneath for him. It has to be something
dark,
and I can
darker than
sympathize.
this.
I can sympathize with that shit, but I cannot condone what he did.
Yeah.
I will never be able to condone his actions. And I mean, because Jordan and I tried so hard to work this out in the beginning. And there just was something that he couldn't let go of. I don't know if something's going on in that house. This is pure speculation. I don't know if there's something going on in that house or was. And, Richard found the opportunity. Yeah. And he was using that as the opportunity, or using Logan as the opportunity to be a scapegoat.
And not even realize it, but or realize it and not care. Yeah.
Or maybe something happened to him and just the sheer trigger of knowing Logan and Ruth were, exploring as 8-year-olds do.
Yeah.
Just triggered so much trauma for him that he just went into freak the fuck out mode.
Yeah.
I have no way of knowing. I have no way, again, it's just speculating. But whatever it was, it ruined a family. I can say to you, it ruined a family. Again, it wasn't the only reason I ended up on the road that day, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back, for sure. All right, can we all go out for a cigarette now? Yeah, can we go for a cigarette? Uh-huh.
Go get a non-alcoholic beer and breathe.
Oh,
let's
listen.
Okay,
I often say that smoking is good for you because it actually helps you breathe. It's going to take everything I have not to go out. I'm not going to go out and get one.
I will not condone cigarettes.
I'm not going to do it. Neither will my friend Melanie.
Everybody go out and breathe.
Tells me she will punch me in the face.
Go hug a puppy.
To go hug a puppy.
Yeah.
That's right.
Go hug
This
a
is
puppy.
fucking trauma, people. This is
That
the
is
shit
it.
that nobody wants to talk about, to acknowledge, to help people with. It's just, I mean, if we just ignore it, then it just goes away, right? How many people are we losing in this society because of situations like I went through? You know, I was going to therapy and God love the therapist I was with, but she did fucking nothing for me. It did absolutely nothing. I was
Yeah.
in therapy, sure, but I was not in the right therapy. You know, and all the doctors could do, I had 2 different doctors throwing different medications at me, including benzodiazepines back and forth, you know, Xanax and Klonopin. So I wasn't getting a chance to even wean off of one before they'd throw another at me. And then if that wasn't working, they wouldn't wean me off. They just throw in. So that had to do something to it too. I don't know. But, you know, I need the world to give a shit. I need for everyone out there who has gone through, maybe going through, or will go through something that will rock them to their core in a way that they may not realize they're spiraling. It's not your fault. Your brain and body are there to protect you. And there are ways to work through it without it going down the dark rabbit holes that I have existed in the past 10 years. There are so many ways out of it. You know, today I am happy. I love life. I live in the present. I find joy. I'm learning new things all of the time. I'm about to embark on going back to school. I'm about to embark on, you know, big stuff coming through for, you know, this podcast, you know, to help people. There are a lot of things in the works. There's a lot. And had you asked me even a year ago if any of this was possible? No. I spent a lot of years sitting around just waiting for the day to be over, for life to just, you know, do its thing and until the day I die. That's how I live my life.
And now we're thriving.
That's right. That's right. Even after all that bullshit with Richard and Jane and Ruth. Dick and Jane and Ruth. Mm-hmm.
To you, my friend.
Cheers.
All right, everybody, we're gonna wrap this one up here. This was sorry for the longer show here, but the story needed to be told. It's all good. No, we're glad. I'm glad we got through this.
I'm all like snotty and
you're good.
Teary
That's trauma, people. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Make sure you hit a follow. Go check out some other episodes. Leave us a 5-star review if you're on Apple Podcasts. Sign up for our newsletter, and we'll be back with more. There's more to this story, of course. So stay tuned.
See you next week, guys. Bye.
Time's up. See you next week. That's how we should close every episode. Classic therapy. Time's up. See you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.